side event on the Convergence initiative, Synergizing Food Systems and the Climate Action for Equitable Food Systems and a Sustainable Future. We are very happy to collaborate and partner with FAO and CGIAR in organizing this event. As you know, the event is about the Convergence initiative. We have speakers from a wide range of institutions, from the UN system, from the private sector, and the science organization, as well as youth. Before I hand over to His Excellency, the Vice Minister from Indonesia, I would like just to very quickly to present the Convergence initiative to you. Okay, next please. Okay, so as many of you know, in COP28, the Emirates Declaration on Sustainable Agriculture, Resilient Food Systems and the Climate Action was launched. It is now signed by 160 countries, and the Hub has launched the Convergence initiative, which was included in the Secretary General call to action. The idea here is to help countries in updating their food system pathways, their national determined contribution, and national adaptation plans in a way that synergetically address both food system objectives and the climate change objectives. We are very happy to have now implemented the Convergence initiative in 3 countries. We started in Kazakhstan, then we were in Brazil, and finally in Indonesia. We are very honored to have the Vice Minister from Indonesia who will speak to us about the experience of Indonesia in the Convergence initiative. But just to give you a quick idea on what we try to achieve. We would like to help countries where they are coordinating their governance, policy, and the implementation spheres. So in the government part, we help countries in building an inclusive platforms that include participants and the stakeholders from food system and the climate. We take the opportunity of all the momentum around the NDCs for next year, NDC 3.0, NAPS, National Adaptation Plans, and food system pathways to help the countries bring the perspective of food system into climate and the perspective of climate into food systems, and then help countries in implementing programs, projects, and initiatives that are reflecting the convergence and collaboration. In the same time, we are also working with countries to have a robust monitoring framework where countries can detect and review their commitments in NDCs and NAPs in order to make sure that they are helping them being on the right track. In Indonesia and in Kazakhstan and Brazil, the 3 countries have started the process of creating what we call the Convergence blueprint. And this is an agreed framework between participants where they have a vision, agreed interventions and milestones and monitoring and evaluation system that help them in their process to make sure that there is a coherent policy approach. Next, please. Okay, this is the timeline of the Convergence initiative. Our plan is by COP30 in Brazil to have the Convergence initiative implemented in 30 countries. We are done with 3, and now we are going into the second phase where we will be implementing the Convergence initiative in Turkey, in Ethiopia, and in Jordan. And by COP30 in Brazil, we would like to report the implementation in 20 countries. I would like to stop here, and I would like really to welcome His Excellency the Vice Minister of Indonesia. Indonesia is one of the first pilot countries of the Convergence initiative, and His Excellency will provide us with a presentation about the experience of Indonesia in this way. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me. Before I continue with my presentation, I would like to make a disclaimer. I'm just in this job for roughly 3 weeks because it's a new government. And of course, I have my other hat, which is Indonesian Ambassador to UN and WTO in Geneva. So be gentle with me. It's a profound honor to stand before you today, representing Indonesia, to share the vision of our Convergence initiative, a framework that embodies our steadfast commitment to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030, transform our food system, and fulfill our nationally determined contribution. We recognize that the sustainable food system are essential to enhance our human resources, reduce poverty, and protect our precious natural resources. Through our Convergence initiative, we unite these imperatives to create a more resilient, sustainable, and just food ecosystem. Our journey toward food system transformation is a bold testament to our enduring commitment as we look to Indonesia Golden Vision 2045, the centennial of our independence. We aspire to develop eco-region-based food system that leverage our land's natural resources and distinct geographical tapestry. And this approach not only ensure food security, but also nourishes a deeper resilience rooted in our unique resources. To support this transformation, we have established a dedicated special allocation fund, facilitating and empowering local government to promote locally food system, including the bounty of our aquatic food resources. Further, we have crafted the Food Loss and Waste Roadmap 2025-2045, the Circular Economic Roadmap, and the Indonesia Blue Economy Roadmap, blueprints that illuminate our path toward a green, sustainable economy. Indonesia's commitment to climate action is equally resolute. Our NDCs outline ambitious targets for greenhouse gas reduction, while also emphasizing adaptation measures for a climate-resilient future. Through the Low Carbon Development Initiative, we embed sustainable practices into every sector of our economy, harmonizing growth with ecological stewardship. Our climate-resilient development strategies and the Indonesia Biodiversity Strategy and Action Plan 2025-2045 further underscore our dedication to safeguarding our environment for generations to come. Ladies and gentlemen, in partnership with the Food System Hub, Indonesia recently convened a 2.5-day workshop bringing together voices across the government, the private sector, civil society, researchers, youth, farmers association, and development partners. And this convergence yielded profound insight as participants shared their vision and ideas for harmonizing food system with climate action. From this workshop emerged preliminary recommendation in at least 4 critical areas for converging food system transformation with climate action. First, reducing food loss and waste. Second, fostering responsible consumption and production. Third, advancing the circular economy. And last but not least, embracing the possibilities of blue transformation. The outcome of this convergent initiative will be channeled into a convergence action blueprint, which will serve as the foundation for an effective monitoring and evaluation framework. And this blueprint, along with our convergence strategies, will shape and refine Indonesia's national strategic pathway for food system transformation, guiding us toward a future defined by harmony and sustainability. The road to convergence is one that requires unity, collaboration, and of course, shared purpose. Indonesia stands ready, not only eager to share our own experiences, but also to learn from others. Together, let us forge resilient food system that transcend borders, system that enrich global food security, reduce emission, and nurture our shared natural legacy. And finally, I look forward to embarking on this transformative journey with all of you, making this initiative impactful. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. Thanks also for the confidence of Indonesia. I know you have to leave, so I would like now to invite... Thank you so much. No, I really appreciate the work that we have done with Indonesia. As Your Excellency has said, it is not only about learning, but also about sharing the experience with other countries. This is why throughout COP29, the hub is bringing some of the national conveners of the 3 countries where we implemented the conversion initiative to share this experience and to build on it on the road to COP30. It's now my pleasure and honor to invite our panelists for today. We have 4 speakers representing the UN, youth, and also the private sector. I start by inviting Mr. Martial Bourneau, Team Leader and Senior Natural Resources Officer, Office of Climate Change, Biodiversity and Environment, FAO. Please join me here. Also Ms. Riline Martin, Head of Sustainability, International Chamber of Commerce. And Ms. Helene Van Ticklen, Master Student Bioscience Engineering, specializing in agricultural, water, and the climate, and Dr. Aditi Mukrag, Director of Climate Impact Area, CGIAR. Please. So, thank you so much. Let me start first with Martial. FAO is the leading agency in agri-food system transformation. The FAO Strategic Framework 2022-2031 highlights this important area. FAO also has very important initiatives, including the SCALA initiative, how this can support countries when they are trying to converge food system and climate action.
Okay, thanks for the question. As you mentioned, FAO mandate is really it's on. People can hear me, but yeah, you have to use the headset. So I was saying that, mentioning that FAO also has a UN agency in charge of SDG 2, so zero hunger. We realize that we can just tackle the challenge if we all work together. So this is what you presented is utmost important. This is, we need really to converge with the same pathway, with different pathways sometimes, but with the same objective. This objective is how we tackle different challenges like zero hunger, like climate change, like biodiversity loss, land degradation, also alleviating poverty, so people offering just solutions. And what you are doing, this is exactly what FAO is looking at, and this is also echoing what FAO is doing. So you mentioned the SCALA project. So the SCALA project is really on scaling up, how moving from policies to action, for the moment in 12 countries, but we will scale up SCALA. We are looking for a SCALA Plus, where we will target 20 countries. So this is a program that is put together FAO and UNDP, where we are joining forces to look at all the different sectors. So it's not just the agriculture sector, but it's putting all the different sectors, and FAO bring also the knowledge and the technology we have for that agriculture sector. So how we transform, we build the correct NDC that are looking at a converging approach, let's say like that. So, and we have that example we have seen from Indonesia, where you have a policy on bioeconomy, you have a policy, but all those policies should echo each other, should complement each other to avoid some conflict, and also to build on synergies when we will have to also find the resources to implement those actions. So if you have different policies that are fully aligned, basically it will be more easier for a government, for a country, to find the adequate resources to move to the action, because your action will be tackling different challenges. So this is one example, SCALA. I don't know if I have time. If I have time, I can elaborate on another one. It's started in Egypt under the leadership of the COP27 presidency. FAST, well known as a food for agriculture, food and agriculture for sustainable transformation. That was initially an initiative that evolved into a partnership. So, and this is the other point I want to say, partnership. Because basically we can have a common goal, but we need also to partner all together. So FAST is not only the government, it's also all different non-party stakeholders. Young people, Youngo, IPARD, they are part of FAST. But we have also the multilateral donors bank that are part of that process. We have the farmer, because we need to be always farmer-centric. And I know in the Convergence you also want to, let's say, using a client approach, your final end user you want to target, it's the people. So this is basically, you want to benefit the people. So we have also the farmer. So that FAST partnership that was initiated, I was mentioning at COP27, now we will gear up at that COP. The partnership is settled. We have a co-chair, so we have Egypt, we have also Azerbaijan as a current host here. Brazil just joined as a future COP also. With different countries. And we are fast, but then now we are looking at how we converge not only the policy, but how we manage to converge different initiatives, coalition, network that have been set along the year in different COPs. So I remind, for instance, COP22, it was a triple A, so on adaptation for agriculture in Africa. COP21 in Paris, there was something on the 4 per mil, so it was mostly targeting soil. So we put all those COP-born initiatives, or not born at a COP, but related to the climate, biodiversity, bioeconomy nexus, all together and do some kind of mapping. CGIAR did a mapping recently together, part also of the UK breakthrough. So it's another initiative that will be launched at a COP, where you have an agriculture component, and CGIAR is helping to map different also initiatives. So all together, we need to have that clear mapping. That clear mapping, and I'll give you just an example here. If I ask someone, do you guess how many initiatives, if you use the keywords agriculture, food, climate, and access to finance? 90. 90. 90. 90, with half of them born in the last 3 years. So people are saying it's too much. For me, I'm not responding that. I'm saying it's a good signal that we are really tackling the right topic. But we need to have some kind of harmonization and understanding of what those different initiative coalitions are doing to ensure that we are not competing, but we are complementing and working in synergies and building bridges that we need to tackle all those important challenges in terms of fighting climate change, preserving biodiversity, protecting land against degradation, for instance. So this is what we need, and that at that COP we will have a launch on the 19th of November, that is Food, Agriculture and Water Day, of the Harmonia initiative. So Harmonia initiative is for farmers, and in the title is trying to bring that harmonization, and Harmonia and FAST will work together. And we hope that we will work together also with the Convergence initiative. I'm quite sure we will. And this is what we need. So all those different initiatives need to help building the convergence we want to see at the policy level. So this is basically putting all those different elements, so all those different initiatives, the different policies that you have at the country level, and then we will tackle that challenge all together. So I am full of hope that we can work together. Thank you, Javier.
Thank you so much, Martial. And in fact, when the Convergence initiative is being implemented in these countries, the hub approach is also to go through the UN system, and the FAO was one of the strongest supporters when we implemented the Convergence initiative in Kazakhstan and Indonesia and Brazil. You highlighted also very important points about partnerships and having an inclusive approach. Yes, we might have 90 initiatives, but still the demand is at the country level is much more than what the UN is able to offer. I think the key word on what you mentioned is we need to converge between ourselves also before we ask countries to converge their efforts. So now it's my pleasure to invite Dr. Aditi Mukherjee from the Director of Climate Impact Area in CGIAR. You will tell us about what could be the innovative approaches in bringing harmony to national policies and what CGIAR is doing with other agencies to support this approach. Over to you.
Thank you. I was opening my notes. Actually, my colleague James was supposed to talk in this session. He arrives later today, so I'm kind of also sitting on his behalf, and he has shared with me some. So maybe I can start with what the CGIAR is doing. So first, we work in particularly some of our centers are Alliance Biodiversity and CGIAR, International Water Management Institute and the Food Policy Research Institute. Through their projects, support several countries in planning their NDCs, NAPs and NBSAPs. So it's one of the work is that CGIAR centers provide technical assistance in about 40% of the countries, particularly around the issues of helping designing these key national documents that are pertinent to both biodiversity goals as well as climate change goals. But given our own portfolio, our own bandwidth, it so often so happens that these assistance is provided for only one of the tracks. Like either we provide inputs or consultations to the NAPs or to the NDCs or to NBSAPs and not to all of them. So I think increasingly our realization itself is very much like the initiative you are talking about, that these three processes have to be in tandem with each other. So we are increasingly trying to move into the issue of providing advisory, into all of these three tracks at the same time. And I think some of the things that it really, for us, what it highlights is the challenge of bandwidth or organizations. Like our organizational limitations ourselves in being engaged in all these different processes all at the same time. And it also shows that that we need to do something additional to be able to concurrently kind of provide inputs to NDCs, NAPs and NBSAPs. So the kind of convergence initiative you are talking, our organizations would also benefit from understanding how effectively we can do that to synergize the three processes. Then I wanted to come to a particular example where we have been working very closely with the World Bank funded ICRA, this Accelerating Impacts of CGIAR Climate Research for Africa. This has been one of our more successful models, where we have worked in 5 African countries, Senegal, Mali, Ghana, Ethiopia and Kenya. And we have been able to package all the CGIAR innovations in the agri-food system. So everything that has been called under the general umbrella of climate smart agriculture, that could be land management, that could be fertilizer management, that could be livestock management, that could be weather-based information services, it could be insurance products, a whole range of innovations that the entire CGIAR works on has been, so we have partnered with World Bank and been kind of scaling these up. And in the process, we have been able to reach almost 4 million farmers. And when we say 4 million farmers, the depth of engagement varies. With some, it could be as simple as sending them advisory services on, okay, this is going to be the weather condition in the next 2 weeks, therefore do this, do that. Versus some engagement would be much more in-depth, as in technology transfer. Like, this is the technology for using less fertilizer while not compromising your food. And so a whole training and follow through. So like adding up to all those numbers, we have reached almost 4 million farmers. Majority of them are women and smallholder farmers. So I'll stop there. And do you want to also talk about some of the specific research tools, or is there another? Okay. So some of the research tools that we have been using is, of course, I talked about the ICRA, which is basically a umbrella where all our innovations that are scale ready. CGIAR is a research and innovation organization. We work on things very much concepts phase versus things that are very ready for scaling. So whatever is ready for scaling then moves on to our ICRA program, where those are scaled in these countries that we talked about with funding from the World Bank. In addition, we have been, like our partners, our colleagues from IFPRI have been using the impact tool to support the implementation of the Emirati Declaration. In that we mean that impact is IFPRI's global modeling tool for food and agriculture, and it has been used to project the agriculture trends in a climate change world till 2050. And both sites are being used to inform some of the signatories of the Emirates Declaration. 160 countries signed up. So if the countries want to know how is their food systems going to perform under different levels of global warming or under different climate conditions, then we have those kind of forecasting and modeling tools. So then we have been also, some of our centers and scientists have been working on climate smart investment plans, which basically translate climate and agri-food challenges into practical investment strategies. So if by 2030 pests and diseases are going to be a top problem in your region, then sorry, then what kind of investments do you need to overcome those? Or what kind of crops do you need to withstand a higher temperature? So we have that kind of plans. And then finally, there has been also work around climate smart agri-food country profiles. We have done those national assessments for a number of countries. And what these profiles actually serve is as an evidence-based tool for agriculture policy and planning decision. So I hope I've been able to cover a few examples.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, Dr. Aditi. And this is really comprehensive. In fact, throughout the Conversion Initiative Task Force, where CGIAR is a member, we are also managing to build on this important contribution to provide evidence and tools for countries when they start to make decisions. This should be based on scientific evidence, and this is something that CGIAR is producing. You mentioned some very important point about the climate smart agriculture, which I think in the 3 workshops that we have conducted so far is coming very prominently in the discussion. So thank you for this. Now it's my pleasure to invite the ICC the International Chamber of Commerce. You represent the private sector. The private sector has a very key role when it comes to food systems and the climate action. You can tell us more about the role of the private sector and how you collaborate and partner with governments. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I think today I've been hearing a lot about the exciting initiatives that are happening in different spaces. And I think something I'm also hearing more clearly is how we can probably harness more the power of collaboration for greater impact. And I think as ICC, some of you might not be familiar with ICC, but we are the institutional representative of 45 million businesses in 170 countries. And we also serve and have a key role as the business focal point in the climate negotiation process. And so whilst we do cover a number of key policy areas, what I'd like to touch upon more today is the more action-oriented arm of what we do, because I do think that is really helpful in terms of connecting the dots that we've been talking about today. And so as ICC has UN permanent observer status, we have made an effort to try and better leverage the connections that we have with the UN-based agencies. And first and foremost is the excellent partnership that we have with the UN Rome-based food agencies, with FAO and the World Food Programme, within the context of the ICC Agri-Food Initiative. And then in that particular initiative, we really are looking to connect the dots with businesses and some of these institutions to really try and enhance some of the development cooperation that needs to take place, also providing a platform for really helpful discussions, sharing of best practices, information sharing, and also being able to build upon those. And that initiative really is trying to strive for greater sustainable practices for businesses, but making sure that we do that collectively and are able to mobilize that support. Something else I would like to mention is that just last month, ICC became a founding partner of the Global Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty, which is established under the Brazilian G20 presidency. And in that respect, we really see the opportunity for ICC to leverage the expertise of the private sector, particularly looking at developing scalable solutions to sustainably and equitably feed the world. So that is just one of the initiatives we're engaged in, and in September this year we also became a founding partner of the Private Sector Humanitarian Alliance, and that one's really looking at trying to bring that bridge between humanitarian ecosystems and global businesses. And so ICC, representing the private sector, does have an important role to play in that space in addressing those issues, because we do know that 1 in 11 people are actually faced with malnutrition and food security issues, and to the degree that the private sector can play a key role, ICC is willing to at least connect the dots with people in country where that is possible. Another point I would like to raise is that ICC was also quite instrumental in the securing of the Black Sea grain deal, really to allow the resumption of grain exports via the Black Sea. That was really quite an important juncture where we were able to collaborate with key partners in that space, and are now working within the UN Global Crisis Response Group on food, energy and finance. And then last but not least, in terms of the initiatives, we're also working very closely with the WTO and the International Trade Center in the context of the WTO SME working group, particularly looking at raising awareness and looking at barriers that smallholder farmers face. And so ICC is very pleased to engage in those areas. I did want to touch upon some of the key factors, but maybe that will come round in the second round of questions. So I'll hand over to you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eileen, and thanks also for explaining very well the role of the private sector in supporting food system transformation and food security. Congratulations also on joining the Global Alliance Against Hunger under the Brazilian presidency. I think this is a very important step. One of the 6 action areas coming from the Secretary General call to action at the end of the stock-taking moment last year was how to empower the private sector, ensuring public partnership, but also ensuring corporate accountability, which is very important when it comes to in the context of food system transformation. So thank you for this. My last speaker is Ms. Helen Van Tuchelen. If I say that, you will correct me later on. But in the hub, we really value the role of youth in the area of food system transformation. You are representing Yungu, which is the official youth constituency for the UNFCCC process. Can you tell us some of the key themes and partnerships that youth are bringing to the table for COP29?
Yes, hello everyone. To pronounce my name, it's Helena van Tichelen, but I get it, so no problem. I'm really excited to be here. So I'm still a student, so I don't have actual expertise on some of the things you are doing here. But that is something that our constituency is very diverse in. We have not only students, but also still children in it, people who are looking at the future. And when it comes to agriculture and food, when I heard that over 30 years, like more than half of the land for agriculture will not be usable anymore for the things we're doing now, that's something like in 30 years I'm gonna be on a field probably. So what's going on with that? So that's why in my studies, I'm doing bioscience engineering, but I'm also joined the International Association for Students in Agriculture and Related Sciences to really like combine that view, like what's going on with the climate and agriculture. Youngo is a very broad constituency. We are not only following agriculture and food security, we have a lot of working groups covering finance, adaptation, mitigation. So I cannot go into detail of those working groups because I'm only active in agriculture and food. Well, I'm following water and oceans as well as a personal interest, I would say. But then you go to the agriculture and food working group and you realize that all the other working groups are just related to you. You cannot have agriculture without the finance problem or the just transition problem or the woman's problem or even like adaptation, mitigation. It's also interconnected, and that's what our working group really tries to do. We have people from all different aspects. We have some lawyers with us. We have a veterinary sitting here. We have, of course, some agriculturists and some young farmers, which is really important because they are on the ground. They are seeing the problems. Myself, as a hopefully future engineering, it's looking more at technical aspects, and we try to bring that holistic view in all of these topics. We follow different negotiations. We have different debriefs, and we try to combine that. So. What we also do is every year we write a global youth statement, and that is based on not only our working groups but also local conference of youth. So we have a conference of youth every year prior to the COP, but we also have local conference of youth, and they happen all over the world. I know that even sometimes more than one in two, in one province. So it's really nice to have that local view of agriculture as well included into our global youth statement. So if you haven't read it, you can do it. This year we also made it following the NID structure, so it's negotiation aligned demands, so that we can really go to the negotiations. But often what we also do as youth is then go back to our own countries and like see, okay, we now have our global do, but what can we do local? So really like think globally and act locally. And that is really strong. We can connect with different youth NGOs, we can connect with different peoples in the field, and we know that all these people, we will not stay in Youngo forever, unfortunately. No one stays under 35 years old. So we will maybe go to the women's constituency or the NGO or like very different things, or maybe we will become part of a party. So it's really interesting to be able to have that network of youth connecting in this place.
you so much, Helen, and really, really inspiring. I think this is the kind of energy we needed when it comes to actions. Thank you, Your Excellency. Thank you so much. So I think you highlighted two important points. One, food is linked to everything else. So it is linked to finance, linked to climate, linked to empowerment, even gender equality. But also what you mentioned about thinking globally and acting locally is very, very important, and is at the core of what we are trying to do in the Food Systems Hub. So the good news is that we have some time. So I would like to ask maybe the panelists one more question, and it will be just one question for everyone, to identify maybe one, according to your institution or according to your experience, what would be the most important single challenge facing food system transformation, and what is your agency doing at the moment to address this challenge? Maybe we'll start with you, Martial.
Very simple question. Representing a big UN agencies with more than 10,000 people working in all the countries. One challenge, perhaps not what you are expecting, but it's communication. Communication, 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 and sharing information. Because the bigger an agency, the more complex being aware of what is happening in that country, what is happening in that country, in that division that sometimes is in the same corridor. We need really to improve the way we are communicating each other, and then it will be the way to move forward to be more aligned on, using your word, converging in the same direction, and avoiding sometimes. Most of the time you have people that are not aware and say, oh, I was not aware that you were doing that. It's just because the information was not flowing correctly. And if we manage to have that flow of information, basically we will save time and we will be more powerful in our action. So, just food for thought.
A very good answer, considering that this is a question on the spot. Thank you so much, Martial. Okay, Dr. Aditim, if you would like to share something.
Yes, actually, Marshall's thoughts also invoke some in me. I was thinking that I would say that the main challenge, and it is indeed a very big challenge, is how do we reduce greenhouse gas emissions from the agri-food sector without harming food and nutrition security. Because for most of the countries, food and nutrition security is the red line. I mean, as it should be, because you literally cannot starve people for climate goals and vice versa, right? So how do you make that a win-win solution is a very big science challenge. We have in the other sectors, we have equivalent solutions. We have the electric vehicles, we have the solar panels in the energy sector, we have the electric vehicles in the transport sector, but we do not have any equivalent cost-effective one big solution in the climate sector. So in the agriculture sector. So I think there is a need for a huge amount of research and innovation. But what something Marshall said kind of brought this thought in my mind is very often we also needlessly compete with each other, you know, and that is, I think, well, let me put it, it's just a very silly thing to do, because the scale of the problem is so huge that there is a space for each and every one of us to come on board with solutions. So it's not only competition between colleagues in the same field, but it's also agency competition and all of those between private sector, public sector. So I think the need to be carving your territory is a little less, but to be more collaborative is, I think, a real challenge that we have to all rise up, because the scale of the problem is so huge that no one single person or organization can say that we have the solutions, because we simply don't have.
Thank you so much. And I think what you mentioned really about the issue of how to balance between reducing greenhouse gas emissions but ensuring food security is very much important, especially in developing countries where people who might be facing hunger or malnutrition, it's very difficult for them to convince them about greenhouse gas emissions. So the two should go in parallel. Okay, Relin, go to you now.
Thank you very much. Very quickly, I think from my side, one of the biggest challenges we see is a misalignment of systems. And I think particularly for this COP that is really known as the finance COP, I think that's a critical area that we are seeing, because adequate financing is really what we need to transition. And what we are seeing from the private sector is that there's at least 65% of climate finance that's going to developed countries. But because of misaligned systems in the global financial system, there are barriers to mobilize private sector investment in emerging and developing countries that really need it the most. And I think that is directly related to investment in in sustainable food systems. And if we're able to unlock that investment and have that alignment of systems, that will really be more impactful in the areas that are really looking for it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eileen. Thanks for highlighting also the issue of financing and the role of the private sector. Lastly,
My first initial thought was also communication, but maybe a little bit different, mainly because if we want to connect with youth from all over the world, we cannot do this in English. It's just not possible. We are not educated enough. You cannot go talk to a 12-year-old that's already working on a farm in English. So for us, it's really sometimes language barrier, and of course, all the others that comes with being global involved. And I was going to add another thing, and I should have written it down because now I forgot. So it had something to do with what you said, but yeah. So I think communication for us is really important as well, to connect all the processes and to connect ourselves. And then maybe it was education. It's always education, the access of knowledge, being able to have the same knowledge all over the world. I'm so privileged to be from Belgium and having access to all those things and being able to do self-study. It's not common in other countries to be able to learn in that way and to try different things in your agriculture field. So I think education is also a very important part.
okay, Martial.
If I may, so we will complement each other. So I guess all of us, because when you say different languages and people, and this really bring me, yes, the challenge is how to connect why we are here. It's a global convention to tackle a global challenge. But who will implement the solution? It's local people, it's local farmer, local community, local youth. And this is where enters the issue of language also. So, but how to ensure that basically we offer all the solution, and we have the solution. Science is already clear on some of the solution, but how we have that this implemented at a local level on respecting the different context, because it's all context specific. So one solution can work here, but might not be well adapted in another context. So this is why sometimes the agriculture sector is so difficult to when someone tell you where is the solution, you cannot say you have plenty of solution. We know the solution, but we have to look at the specificity of the people of the local context, and looking also all the different challenges that what you are doing also in the Convergence initiative. It's not it's a food, it's a circular economy, or to use the product that we have, and so on. So adding this point on the global to the local.
Yes, thank you so much, Marcel. Thanks a lot. I think this is a key point actually, and it might look not the most important part about using language and the local language, but even in the Convergence initiative, in the 3 workshops that we conducted, the one that we conducted in Kazakhstan, we conducted in Russian, because we wanted the farmers to be able to communicate and to say what they believe. The one in Brazil we conducted in Portuguese, two non-UN, the Portuguese non-UN language, but we insisted on having it, giving the opportunity to everyone to express his views. So I think what you mentioned, Martial and Hélène, about the communication is really critical when we try to enact a change on the ground, when we want to enact and involve everyone. Thank you so much. I would like to thank our speakers, but we have some time for a few questions. So if we have any questions, please, yes.
Yeah, hello everyone. So my question to all of you and also the FAO specifically is, we've been talking a lot about harmonizing food system initiatives and global policy, but how do we harmonize these global initiatives and policy discussions with local policy decisions that are taking place nationally, because more often than not, commitments made globally and the actions happening locally are two different things, especially on the ground with farmers. So how do we actually ensure that, again, as you said, it's a communication and accessibility problem as well. So how do we make sure that our global commitments, like the FAST partnership and many others in line, are actually being implemented in various countries across the world and actually affecting farmers on the ground on an individual level for the transition that we are talking about?
This is for you, Marcel.
So this is basically the reflection we are having on. I see I have also colleagues here that work in South Asia, and it was a lot of reflection in a workshop recently about that. And this is exactly so. Each initiative we have our own goal, our own objective, and we are working differently. Some initiatives are global, so they can bring that connection to what I was mentioning, the global level with the COP, with the Rio Convention. But some initiatives and regional initiatives are more anchored with people, with the ground. So that's why we need to build synergies on that. So for instance, if you look at the AAA, they're working only in Africa, but only in adaptation. But here they have more a local connection, but they're perhaps missing also the more holistic approach. If you look at only on adaptation, you can have also maladaptation sometimes. So you need also to look on other issues that can be put forward by another initiative that will bring their own specificity. It's very difficult to what Harmonia want to achieve. We know it will not be simple because no one want to be coordinated. If I say to Khaled, I will coordinate you because I know what he will look at me and say, perhaps no. But what we can do, and this is where the information, that's why I was mentioning that, we can at least share information, experience. So what Convergence is doing was a climate resilient food system initiative is doing. So they're doing mapping at a country level involving also farmers. So it will be the solution. So to have some kind of hub of willingness, because we can never force anyone. And if a coalition initiative say, I don't want to be involved in that harmonization, we can do nothing. But I hope that they will see also the added value and they will share the experience, they will be at the table, and all together we will see all the different pieces. It's like we are building a house and we have different pieces, and if the pieces just remain apart, we will never have that house that we need to have. So.
Okay, maybe any feedback from other speakers on this question, please?
Well, in our organization, IAS, it's the thing I said, think globally, act locally is actually one of our slogans, because we have local chapters where we do local projects depending on what people need. So in Belgium, it's more about education things. But I know in Indonesia, for example, it's more about mangrove systems and like local farming systems there. India is more about the seeds and stuff. So that's how we try to have that local thing connected with our global network, and also try to connect and not say from a global ES perspective, like you have to do this, but leave it free.
Okay, thank you. Any further thoughts? Yeah.
So I'm just thinking from the hat of Science and Innovation Organization. If you see these COPs, what they are essentially doing for countries and for local farmers is kind of setting targets and saying that you have to reduce whatever, like you have to be within 1.5, and then the actual pathways of doing so would be different depending on the context. In some contexts, it would be about reducing your emissions from livestock, versus in other contexts it would be about reducing your emissions from maybe the other sectors. So I think the way science and innovation organizations can help is to come up with these different solution packages. Then depending on the context, local players or national players can adopt. But the adoption is again not a one-way process. It's not as if the scientists come up with the solutions. We already know that that's the model that doesn't work. So more and more the world is moving towards co-production, and the importance of the COP-like processes is really setting these aspirational targets And these are more than aspiration, because what we now know is that our future literally depends on whether we are able to keep within 1.5 degree. But the option is not just you do X or Y, it's the options are a lot. As Marshall was saying, there are a lot of options out there, which is specific for where is that's where we need a lot more science and research and innovation, not only in the technology but also in the governance and the institution sides. Very often, for example, if you're adopting a new technology, there may be some yield penalty, there may be, like a bit of time before you figure out how you are, because you're doing things differently than you were doing earlier. So I think in the earlier panel, somebody talked about safety nets and some kind of a risk guarantee. So those are all the things that we need more innovation and science. How do we cover the risk that the farmers are taking in moving to, say, low emission technologies more effectively? Because right now we may not be covering those risks as effectively. So yeah.
Yes, thank you so much. Another question here?
Thank you. Is it working? Yeah, very good conversation. I have one question exactly on that point on how to align and engage with farmers on those actual implementations. I think that point of having those targets set and then developing the strategy, I think is a very good one. But I think my question is then how to fund those initiatives. And I think it also comes to the private sector, because if you tell farmers what to do, someone from the city, they probably won't do it. But if other farmers then convince or show them how they're doing, they might be more willing to change. But then more specifically, if someone is willing to pay a little bit more, or if there's some kind of incentives for them to implement, that's much easier for them, to the farmers that are more willing to change than to actually do this change. And yeah, I've been working that in private sector, trying to make those alignments upstream in the value chains. But it's ultimately then the question, who is paying it? Is the consumers who are buying the food willing to pay more? Are the governments willing to spend more? Are the private sectors willing to have a lower profit in order to make all these things move forward? So yeah, it's quite a complex question, but I want to hear your thoughts. Whoever wants to answer.
Who would like to take this?
No, I can take, but just kindly ask the next panel and we will have a more 90 minutes. No, but it's a very complex question, but we all know that at the end we need money. We need money, we need investment. And if you look, the agri-food system as a whole is not receiving enough of the climate-related development finance. So several numbers are out there that basically only 4% of the investment going to farmers. If you look just official development aid, so the so-called climate-related development finance, it's only 20% and it's decreasing in terms of percentage. So we need to have more finance. More finance for what? For the farmer. So this is all the discussion that here I will not solve that of what's mean quality of finance. Because we need to increase the quantity, but also the quality. But the quality, will be, you have so many differentiations what you understand by quality, because if you ask me, I will tell you that all what FAO is doing is pure quality, because we have safety nets and we have network, basically we have to screen. If you have the World Bank, they will respond the same. If you have a country, they will say, no, we are just funding nice things. But because we don't have a definition of quality. I'm not sure we will have one day, but we have to perhaps fine-tune that aspect. It's not just quantity, it's also the quality of finance that somehow need to increase. And for that, we need the policy. So it's basically a different pillar that complement each other. Because if you do not have a policy, you can try to have access to finance, to GCF, GEF, World Bank. They will tell you, there is no backup by the national policy, so I will not invest. So you need to ensure that in the policy this is reflected. So policy that recognize farmer-centric, that recognize the solution, agri-food system, and then you might have more access to finance. And the last pillar that is missing, so it's a triangle at least, is data. Data, science, information. So because also if you do not know, we always said that if you do not know exactly what you have to fix, you will not fix. So we need measurement, we need information, we need data where we are and where we went also, because you need a long time period of data to show that you are bending the curve. So we need to work on science, data, policy, finance, and having in the middle of that the farmer-centric. And this have been forgotten sometime. And this is having this in mind that we can answer, or starting to answer to your question. So trying to be short.
Just to come in very quickly, I think you've raised a very important point, and what we often see is what happens in these policy discussions at global level. Sometimes those at local level feel very far removed from what's happening in the global policy space, but nonetheless they're impacted by the decisions that are made there. And we think all the more that needs to be that coordination, consultation in the local context with local communities when some of these strategies are put in place. And particularly now as countries are looking to putting forward their new climate plans by next year, by February, we think it's absolutely integral that they consult with their local communities, consult with all their stakeholders to ensure that it's a holistic view, so that when we are looking at the implementation of some of these policies, that everyone feels that they have a part to play. And just on the finance point, I just wanted to mention very quickly, in the context of the finance discussion, we do see some potential for blended finance options that could perhaps reduce the risk for private investors, while also ensuring a return on investment that actually aligns with those environmental goals. And I think the role that farmers play in that space in terms of the sustainable food systems is an important one that needs to be better leveraged. And I think there are existing synergies that we could really make the most of in that particular area. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lillian.
I think the issue you raise is very much in line with what we would call the need for a just transition in the agri-food system. I think that's something FAO has been working very much. At the CG, we are also increasingly looking at these transition from a just lens. If we are asking farmers to adopt new technologies and take the risk, there has to be some kind of, justice element or a protection element. And I think that's why it's important to, in all the major finance negotiations that are going on, be it NCQG, be it loss and damage, be it GGA, well, it's not directly linked to finance, but even then, I think we as the agri-food community have to always constantly keep raising the flag of agri-food system, because we know it's at the forefront of loss and damage. We know that this is where majority of the funds may be needed, simply because the cost of transition can be quite high in this sector. It's all informal workers, so much of dependence on very precarious livelihoods. So the cost of transition is not insignificant. So we do need finance, and every discussion, I think we have to keep saying that agri-food system deserves that finance for a smooth transition.
Okay, thank you so much. We have another question.
Can you hear me? It's okay? Thank you so much. Let us first introduce myself. I'm Abdurrahman, the Director of Planning and Policy at the Ministry of Livestock, Federal Government of Somalia. Before I go directly to my question, I would like to brief like 2 minutes for the country context for the agri-systems in the country. As you know, Somalia is located in East Africa with 8.9 million hectares, with also 57.5 million livestock. So in general in Africa, we are facing challenges for the agri-food system. Is also instability in the future. Maybe in the local production is low when it comes to due to the lack of infrastructure, lack of mechanisms, lack of agricultural smart in general. And 47 for the land in Somalia is the rangeland also and the forestry. So before go directly to the question, we need how can we reach agri-food systems in general, because now we are exporting like for the Gulf countries many livestock. The last year for 2023, the estimated livestock was exported to the Gulf country. It was 7 million, and the GB contribution for that was 1 billion for comes from that sector. So we are in separate sectors. Maybe the Ministry of Livestock is in separate and agriculture in separate. And also the fishery. So the fishery is not yet more because we have also the most coastline in Africa. So I go back to my question is what are the main ways that the climate impact food system is, and how can food system be adapted, become more climate resilient? That is that I want to ask the panelists, and thank you so much for this opportunity.
Shukran jazilan, and thank you so much. I think this is a very important question, and it is actually at the core of the Convergence initiative. As you mentioned, in many cases, not only in the case of Somalia, but in even many developed countries' cases, the two sectors of food system and the climate, they don't have really a frank discussion about the impact of production on climate and vice versa. And in case of Somalia, as you mentioned, this is a significant part of the GDP of Somalia, the livestock sector, while it might be contributing also to greenhouse gas emissions. So a very important question. Maybe Martial would like to comment on this first?
No, but again, even more clear for adaptation is really context specific. So for Somalia, basically, each stress will impact animal health, the productivity of animals, but all the water cycle, the water system. So basically, animals need to have water, regular access to water, because they cannot just wait 1 week and then have 2 minutes. So it's also the regularity of that access to water. But it's the case of Somalia. If you ask a fisherman for Vanuatu, he will tell you, I have another issue. This is the fish are gone, so because of different reason. So we need to have and to build that discussion at country and subnational level of the different stakeholders involved to build the solution. And you have plenty of already solution for adaptation to be more resilient that are already put in place by farmers. Sometimes they might not be enough. You might to adequate a little bit or to think in the future also. So you need to build first having a strong multi-stakeholder discussion to explain what the risks are. And here you need science to explain the different scenario, what can happen, the probability of this will happen. Then you need the people that will face that, the government also, and you need an early warning system, and then we need again science here because you need access to the data, transmit those data to the farmer, because it's not if you have an alert at national level, but this does not trigger down to the farmer, basically he will suffer and the earth will suffer and we will lose all the earth and then the capital of the farmer. So you see that you need really first to have that first momentum where all stakeholders will exchange, and then you will build the policies, the solution, and so on. But it's really context specific. So I cannot give you the list of adaptive solution or solution for adaptation. It's plenty, and once again, they have to be built with the person that will have to implement. Because if you can have sometime an idea that will say, okay, for that context we need that, but if the farmer are not ready for X reason, it can be cultural also, to adopt that, basically you will fail. So you have to look also at low-hanging fruit.
Thank you so much, Marcel. I think this is a comprehensive answer, but would you like anyone to comment on this as well from science maybe point of view? If you would like to add something?
I was going to refer to you to our colleagues and scientists from the International Livestock Research Institute. They have been doing a lot of work in these low pasture-based, low production systems. And one of the best solutions to reduce greenhouse gas emissions has been actually to increase the productivity of individual animal. And that increasing of productivity can be done through better health, better vaccines, better manure, better feed to reduce emissions overall. So basically a lot of focus on both the health of the rangelands where the animals graze, as well as the health of the individual animals has been one of those winning solutions, because again, obviously the livestock sector solutions that are fit for the high income countries are just not fit for more pasture based low income countries. So I'll be happy to put you in touch with our colleagues. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, one last question, if we have any. Okay. This was a very interactive panel. Thank you so much to all four panelists and also to the Vice Minister who left us. Do you want anyone would like to add any final thoughts? Yeah, please, Helen.
I was thinking a lot about that question. Well, what is the single thing we need to do first, or whatever, or what's the biggest problem? And it came into my mind that maybe it's time. Maybe it's starting to beginning to be time at this moment, because we have been having these discussions for a while, and I was not even born when the first discussion happened on agriculture and sustainability. So, yeah, that got you thinking. So I'll change my answer to that.
No, this is accepted. We are not done yet, so any changes are welcomed. And I think the urgency here is very important, as was mentioned by Helen. So colleagues, also colleagues online who are following us virtually, thank you so much for participating in this meeting. I would like just to offer 1 or 2 minutes summary, not summary, but just the key points coming out of this meeting. From the Food Systems Hub perspective, we will continue to do the Convergence Initiative workshops. We'll be guided also by many of the points that we mentioned today. As Marcel and all of you mentioned, I think communication and the coordination between us, between the UN system, also between institutions that are helping countries is key. Before we go to the countries and ask them to coordinate together, policy coherence is important. I think the key challenge we are facing now is how to still keep food security on the agenda, making sure that we are decreasing the number of hunger, not increasing it, but at the same time we are not increasing our greenhouse gas emission. Communication is key, because without communication and adapting this communication to the local context, we are not able to make sure that everyone is involved, including youth, including native speakers. So this is very important. Science and innovation is key. I think this is the most single important intervention when it comes to countries being able to decrease their greenhouse gas emissions and increasing their productivity. Unfortunately, the access to science and innovation is not equal between countries. LDCs and developing countries have a problem here, and this is one issue that really needs attention. Financing and the private sector are key. In the event today organized by the UAE in Ethiopia about the Emirates Declaration, financing was mentioned by many speakers. If you don't have access to financing, it is not expected that you will be able to transform your food systems. And finally, the power of youth. Engaging youth is really bringing sometimes provocative but needed perspective when it comes to food system transformation. So I thank you so much. We'll keep you updated. Follow the Food Systems Hub, and thank you to all our panelists. Thank you so much.